Welcome to this episode of Perpetual Perspectives. We've got a special guest on today. I'm really excited to have him on this special edition of the podcast. I anticipate this is going to be hugely valuable for traders, builders, founders, and investors alike. Justin, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Hey, Stoic. How's it going? It's going great.
It's going all right, man. So let's jump right into it. Can you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Of course. So my name's Justin. I'm the CEO and founder of Vest Labs. Vest Labs is a quantitative crypto research firm, and we do a lot of things. Most importantly, I think we draw a lot of ideas from traditional mathematical finance literature, and we try to implement these really what we believe are cutting edge theories directly into crypto and DeFi. We're also the builders of Vest Exchange, and this is something that we truly believe is really going to spearhead the next generation of not only Perp-Dexes, but a lot of other DeFi primitives as well. So us as a team and me as an individual, we're all very passionate about maximizing freedom, building fully, truly, and decentralized autonomous solutions, and to really push forward and bring forward the future of decentralized finance. So
That's awesome. And I can't wait to talk more about the novel solution that you're bringing to the table as a remedy to the various issues, especially when it comes to the
yeah,
perps deck space currently. But before we get into that, what I want to talk about is how did you get involved in crypto and what was your background before crypto?
yeah, man, it's a very long story. So to put it short, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I started my first company, and I guess it's probably a natural characteristic of being very risk adverse, being very freedom seeking. So during in school, I went to I'd say a pretty well off one of the top schools where pre-professionalism was a very big thing, and everyone sort of just wanted to kind of go into Wall Street. But during this time, I kind of took the other traditional routes and decided to just build a company. This went very well. It was essentially a viral social app that we launched at our university. Eventually, we sold this and exited. And during this time, I actually met a very close mentor of mine now, who I really appreciate, who connected me with a co-founder. And with this new guy, we decided to build a AI research fintech marketplace with the CEO and founder of Zoom. So the CEO and founder of Zoom gave us $500,000. Essentially, we would use AI and natural language processing to try to connect B2B companies, whether it was startups to investors, whether it's manufacturers, to different kinds of partnerships. And during this time, we actually helped a ton of crypto projects raise insane valuations. This was, peak of 2021, summer 2021, right when everything was starting to pump. Solana was at 220 or something, some crazy amounts, and these guys were raising at crazy like $100 million valuations. And I guess that's kind of what got me like learning about it very interestingly, because I was like, man, like our valuation is only like 10, 20 mil. How are these guys with no products, very adequate, or I guess like normal teams just raising at, these insanely high valuations? So I kind of knew uh, either it was a very big bubble, or, it's just something that a lot of people, a lot of very talented people are looking at. Um, so I learned about it a lot more, started going really deep into the research and the philosophy, the ideology of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a lot of trustless, transparent systems. And as a financial history geek myself, this is something that I kind of just got attached to almost immediately. Um, Whether it's the idea of you have the 1MDB crisis in Malaysia, where the Malaysian government essentially took billions of dollars from its citizens. Um, whether it's through the LIBOR crisis scandal in 2012, where you have corrupt people that worked in banks manipulate rates. I think the idea of something that was fully trustless and autonomous peer-to-peer network was something that I thought could solve a lot of problems within society. So we got very interested in. I got me and my team, and we built Vest Labs. So us as a firm, we did a lot of things. One of the things that we did very well was, I think, the delta neutral and funding rate ARB, as well as protocol MEV across Solana dexes. So we were very big, I guess, algorithmic traders in the Solana ecosystem. Pretty much like all the Perp-Dexes, we were probably on them, like Drift, Mango, 0-1 Exchange. The part where it kind of leads to Vest is very funny because a few months later, man, still like all these all these exchanges went insolvent.
Man, yeah.
Yeah, we know what happened with Drift. There was a blow up,
Yep.
the Mango exploit, and then 0-1. I love those guys. That one wasn't really their fault. It was just more so they had a market maker called Alameda that we don't really speak of anymore. Yeah, and it's just so we were very interested and serious about the potential of the space, but like holy crap, man, like all these people, all these exchanges that we were trading on, they just sort of went under in a few months, and what is supposedly or what we thought was going to be one of the most revolutionary technologies of our time.
Right.
Like this industry it really has so much potential, but in my opinion, I think the status quo is set very low. And yeah, I guess us as a team, we really wanted to create a version that could of a Perp-Dex that could really push forward the industry and set forward the status quo. So we actually came up with a very basic prototype just for fun. Essentially, for more technical traders out there, this was like a version of Drift with 0 repeg loss. We presented to Jane Street, and they said it was the most innovative thing they've seen in the entire year. So they gave us some money, and that kind of started Best Exchange.
That's awesome. Some really impressive achievements and milestones, and I think anyone listening in will appreciate the ideology you just presented. You touched on some key points that led you to becoming a builder in crypto. But what
Yeah.
I like to do now is kind of dive into the story behind Vest as well. So, like, what's the story behind Vest? I mean, you kind of touched upon it, but I like to get into it a little bit more. What did the ideation for Vest look like? And if you could walk us through sort of the process of evolution behind Vest
Yeah,
and
yeah.
how the exchange works, that'd be great.
So yeah, so as traders ourselves, man, we always knew there was very big problems in the DEX landscape. Maybe we're a bit guilty of this, but the moment we kind of took a look at virtual automated market makers, we kind of realized that it was very sus, right? Because ultimately what you're doing is you're adding leverage and virtual liquidity in what is supposed to be a zero-sum game, especially if you're
Right.
using a constant function, constant product, X times Y equals K as your pricing mechanism. But I guess like these issues became very like just too big to ignore after the whole Solana DEX collapse, where a lot of our friends, a lot of people that we were very close to, and a lot of people that even though we weren't very close to, we know there's a lot of innocent people that don't fully understand these mechanisms, and they participate and they end up losing a ton of money. And this kind of reminds me back to like I don't know if you remember. Well, of course you do. The SVB fallout.
Of course. Of
uh,
course.
yeah, like literally everything felt like you're being surrounded by burning buildings. There's nowhere
Yeah.
you can go as a trader, right? Because one dex would collapse, and it's just like, is my money safe in this other dex? Um,
Yeah.
so
It's just a falling of dominoes, right? It's like you just get
exactly,
boxed in.
yeah, yeah, and I guess like it's a little bit of an exaggeration. Like SVB was probably like 10 times worse, but
Right.
it really felt like that, in my opinion, to a lot of traders, because
100%.
I mean the Drift team is very talented, and I think they're probably one of the best in the space. But if Drift blew up, it's like where else would you go at that time? Um, so yeah, it kind of just like just being so into and I guess passionate about the industry and just seeing all this happen, it really took a hit, man. Because it was just like we thought it had the DeFi as a technology, it has the potential to change a lot of things that are traditionally done, and it felt like no one was very doing them right. Partially on the fault of traders, and I guess maybe also on the fault of users for not recognizing.
Right.
Um, but all these people are just, in what my opinion, are doing is just building sort of half-assed protocols that just blow up within a few months. and it just felt like we had to come in and step in and do something. So that kind of created and made Vest out of the ashes, if you would say. We really felt like we had to come in and step in and build something that could really push forward and advance the status quo of DeFi. So creating something that could stand robust within the test of time, especially in the volatile nature of crypto, and something that was completely transparent and fair to traders and LPs. And all of this where the solvency is guaranteed by math and not by manual trust and operation, which sort of happens in a lot of these dexes. So yeah, that's basically the founding story. It's quite a bit.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And
Yeah.
just a follow up question: is this like a chicken and egg argument where should people just also have more knowledge in terms of how exchanges work, and or like what do you think about that conversation? Like, do people just need to be more
Yeah.
self aware as well? Like, it goes
Yeah.
hand in hand, right? People should actually know how exchanges work, and at least have a surface level understanding at a minimum.
That's a really good question, observation, Stoic. I think that's actually probably one of the largest challenges in the industry right now, to be frank. Uh, I don't want to say, like, yes, they partially have a responsibility, but I think it's our responsibility as builders to really make it seamless, and
Right.
also within our moral responsibility to not just purposely fuck over our users,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
Um, so yeah, like I think it's within human nature. You can't expect everyone to fully understand the mechanism, and I think it's completely unreasonable actually for people to expect everyone to understand the mechanisms of Vest. I'd be very surprised actually if
Yes.
everyone
Yes.
if
I would be
everyone
too.
did that. Yeah, yeah. So it's you gotta it's a balance, right? Um, you gotta use your legitimacy as a
Right.
product, and if you have the backing of good founders, unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like these days you get backing of good investors, but sometimes that might not be enough. Or even though you have a good backing, that doesn't necessarily mean that the protocol is safe. So
Yeah. That's the
yeah,
other concern I see as well with Perp-Dexes too, because so many of them have blown up. Is that concern that people have because they don't understand the risk mechanism,
yeah,
and
yeah.
there's still that concern because of all that stuff that's gone down.
It's actually something I was quite a bit surprised because when I first got into crypto, I thought it was a very niche thing, right? Like you got to
Right.
be pretty technical to understand, or at least to get into crypto.
Mm-hmm.
But the average trader actually, you know, they kind of have too much things to worry about, anyways. So it's just
That's the thing. Yeah. Even
yeah,
with trading, I mean, trading itself is such a
it's already
it's such a
such a
complex.
hard
Yeah,
game,
it's so difficult to
and
play.
to take into account like whether the DEX you're trading on is safe,
Yeah,
and
that's
to actually
another
look into the
whole.
mech, that's a whole
Now
nother
you throw
game,
another wrench into it, and
man.
it just becomes too much of a clusterfuck.
Yeah,
But I do think there should be some form of like now I don't know what the threshold should be, but I think there should be some form of like a surface level understanding. Like maybe you don't know all the technical details when it comes to a risk mechanism or how um,
yeah.
the back end works, but some surface level understanding might prevent people to fall into those pitfalls.
That's actually one of the things like I'm really hoping to do at Vest. Um, like education is just like I could care less if people come in and trade on Vest and decide if they want to trade on Vest or not. But I just want people to know like what they're trading on, and if they're
Yeah.
trading on Gains or GMX or DYDX or some other perp dex, that they know the underlying mechanisms and the risk of what could go wrong. And yeah, because it's very easy to get FOMO in this space, right? You see some influencers show this product and it's like, oh my god, I gotta go on and just trade this. Fuck the fuck the mechanism, man. So
Yeah, yeah. And it's also, I mean, so
yeah,
I speak to a lot of traders, right? And I would say the average trader, if they can't trade on a centralized exchange or, there's KYC issues, they'll jump on a DEX without, there's not really much.
they just jump on it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
they'll just jump on, all right, which DEX can I trade on? You know, like That's it.
Exactly.
Like which one can I use? Which one looks pretty? And I'll just go trade on there if
Yeah.
there's liquidity on there, right?
Yeah. But here's
But
the thing, man. I don't know if this is like a solvable, like this is
yeah.
a human philosophy, like you go where the crowd is.
Hmm.
That's probably something that's, over time we're going to see more of.
Yeah,
So
100%.
I really think it's up to us builders to just really build something that really works and with good intentions to users.
Yeah,
So
what's that quote I read? Or it's people usually don't know what they want. Like you just need to give it to them. You know what I mean? So I think as a
yeah, I
builder,
know what you mean. Yeah.
right? All right, so now we've kind of talked about the origin story of Vest. We've gone into
Yeah.
some discussion there, and I'd like to pivot a little bit and get your take on. I mean, we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but let's get into it a little bit more. What the biggest challenges facing the DeFi space today are?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Man, I think what we touched, based upon just now beautifully leads into this because I think from a human reductionist standpoint, it I'll talk about, high level and then how it leads to technical problems. So crypto, you have high barriers to entry to some technologies, which, because the barrier is so high, people have to naturally just trust the protocol that most people trade on or it gets the most attention, right? Um, it's there's sort of like a cost of attention sort of thing. It's like, okay, do I want to spend the time studying this protocol or do I just want to just kind of just trust everyone? And you know, many times I mean, I don't think it's the best move, but naturally people just say, oh, it's better to just trust people. The problem with this, man, is that it leads to the adoption and satisfaction of bad tech, like virtual automated market makers, or at least the adoption of something that you don't fully understand. I think what we saw 2 weeks ago with Blast and Blur and
Yeah,
that whole thing is a very clear example, right? And
insane.
yeah, maybe I shouldn't be naming names here, but I think there's a lot of other protocols
But
in
that's
this
so
space.
true, man. Like it's still mind blowing after everything that's happened that people are just still so. You know what it is, man? It's a speculative aspect in this because of the space we're in. Because there's so much
Yeah,
money involved, and you know what the potential gains are.
yeah,
It's almost as if it's a curtain, right? Like you just forget about everything else. Just like like you said, it's an attention economy, right?
yeah.
So everyone just rushes towards certain things without even second thought of what the repercussions could be or what what come out of it.
Exactly, exactly. So it leads to the adoption of, I think, really, substantial or just normal, probably even just bad tech. Um, there's a lot of even today. There's a lot of like the top 5 perp dexes I can just name. Uh, it's completely centralized, man. It's run by its own validators,
Right.
and the bridge is internal. So you deposit into the LP vault. They can kind of just take your money, but people don't really, they don't really know this. They kind of just see, hey, it's a talk of the town.
Yeah,
It's on
exactly.
chain, therefore, like whatever happened to FTX, it definitely can't happen to me. Uh, thing is, no, it 100% can. So I think like that's one of the problems I would say, and the reason why it's a problem is because it leads to the adoption of bad tech, but it leads to it just generally accepts a praxis of something that users are completely unaware of, and because they're unaware of, you have very high chances of blowups, right? So, for example, like I think, I mean, from a reductionist standpoint, for perp dexes, you have a very normal dilemma or common dilemma between capital efficiency and risk of insolvency. Um, Generally, the more capital efficient a perps dex is, whether that's through open interest caps, more markets on the long tail side of things, or higher leverage, you have a much higher chance of insolvency. So I
Hmm.
think many traders just say like, hey, this DEX is offering so much leverage. It's offering trading on all these markets, zero slippage, zero fees. This looks like this looks like my dream come true, man.
Yeah, it's a brilliant idea.
Right? Um, and then you see like, they go insolvent very quickly. Um, there's a lot of other problems too, I would say. You know, this kind of leads, well, since because this leads to so many kind of adoption of bad tech, you kind of have the traders being okay with the norm. So, for example, liquidity providing. I haven't really. I think the term of passive liquidity providing doesn't really take place in dexes, because as a liquidity provider, you're essentially the counterparty to traders. So it's a zero sum game. Either you win,
Hmm.
or either traders win and you lose, or traders lose and you win. Uh, well, guess what? In the bull market, which hopefully is coming very soon, a lot of traders are going to be winning, and your LP isn't going to be really safe. And I don't think many people kind of fully understand uh, the repercussions of LPing into some dexes. This goes back to kind of like the whole education problem. So I think because you have a lot of people that just trust kind of protocols because other people trust them, whether it's some uh, suspicious crypto influencer. That's another thing, man. There's a lot of, I guess, LARPers and ruggers in the space, like grifters.
Of course.
Getting rid of those is always a good thing. um,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know if they're going away anytime soon, to be honest. I mean, I think eventually things will change slowly, especially with traditional markets coming in and talk of regulation and all this stuff. I think things will gradually change.
it's an uphill
But
battle though, for sure.
yeah, yeah, it's definitely an uphill battle.
Yeah,
Um, all right, so I mean, we kind of talked about some of the challenges that are facing the DeFi space today, and we also kind of dug into the current environment as it pertains to perps being offered on dexes.
yeah,
But I want to have my cake and eat it too, Justin. So I want liquidity, I want all the assets, and I want to make sure that my exchange stays solvent.
yeah.
So let's dive into what the specific mechanisms that drive Vestar and how you're looking to combat some of these issues that we just talked about.
Yeah, so I guess I'll go a bit more technical into here. Um, I'll start from a high level and I'll kind of just dive deep. So, from a high level standpoint, we use something called risk indifference pricing. What this essentially means is that after every single trade at all times, we make sure that the risk of the counterparties, aka exchange and liquidity providers, does not change at all. So at all times, the exchange is risk neutral. So what we do is we set a very high chance of solvency, and then we calculate in retrospect how much capital we need to ensure this chance of solvency at all times, whether that's through funding or whether that's through premia. The way how we calculate risk is we use something called a coherent risk measure, and the one that we use specifically is called entropic value at risk, which is long-term abbreviation for EVAR. Um, EVAR is a term or a risk measure that is used in traditional financial mathematics to quantify the minimum amount of capital that is needed to guarantee with high probability that a position or strategy will not go underwater. So, I think that was a lot of jargon, but a good way to kind of visualize and think about it is um, pretend you have a normal distribution, and on the x-axis you have a distribution of prices, and also current capital at that time. So, in the middle of the normal distribution, you have where your exchange is, as well as where the price of some asset, let's say ETH is at 2000. And as you get
Mm-hmm.
to the near tail ends of the curve, y-axis is probability distribution. So you have lower and lower chances of ETH reaching 3000, a lower chance of ETH reaching 4000,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. Now imagine we put some mark at the tail end. Let's just, you know, the formal way to put this mark is, set x equal to some number. Let's say x equals 4000. Um, we basically say what is the minimum amount of capital we need to make sure that the exchange does not go insolvent with very high probability. So essentially, this gets applied to traders. So when a trader opens a trade, we take into account what is the risk right now and what is the risk after they open a trade. If there is the way how this works is we do EVAR before um, uh, and the difference between EVAR after. What this essentially does is it calculates at a very small level, a very detailed level, what is the exact risk contribution that this trader is adding on to, and we add this difference as the premium fee. So we calculate, okay, what is the minimum amount of capital we need after the trade, and what is the minimum amount of capital we needed before the trade, and the difference of this basically says, okay, this is how much we need to charge this trader as a premium to make sure that we're risk neutral. Hopefully that makes sense. Essentially, you're pricing traders purely based on the risk they're adding. So
Right. No, that
if
that
they're
makes
adding,
sense. Yeah.
yeah, if they're adding a lot of risk, they pay a lot of fees. But if they're adding no risk, or let's say, yeah, if they're adding no risk at all, they actually pay zero fees, zero price impact, zero slippage. Um, and this is actually true zero fee, zero price impact, unlike other dexes which just transfer it over into like insane fees.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
won't, I won't
Right.
name, but I think we all know which.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We know. We know.
Yeah. So, but the cool thing is that this also gets applied to LPs as well. So one of the biggest problems as a liquidity provider in the space is you're a direct counterparty to traders, and you have this counterparty exposure. So if traders win, you lose. The question becomes, what happens in a bull market where traders are net profitable? Uh, as a liquidity provider, what do? You're going to get wrecked, basically. So um, whereas other Perp-Dexes basically charge an arbitrary fee in hopes that the LP will kind of be happy with this yield, what we do is we calculate what is the exact risk that you're taking as a liquidity provider. What is the counterparty risk? What is the chance of you losing money? And we set your expected losses and gains to be exactly zero. So you're actually risk neutral as a liquidity provider. And on top of that, we charge a fixed taker fee from traders to pay to LPs. So I can talk a little bit more about simulations too, but
Yeah. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. I want to dig into this a little bit more.
yeah, so when you run sims on this, you actually get a very good result where liquidity providers' capital is actually very stable. And it's stable because they're being paid, one, a risk-adjusted yield, and two, it's also getting covered by the exchange. So that's something I need to touch a bit more on as well. In traditional exchanges, you have something called the insurance fund, where traders pay a fixed fee on top of this, and the exchange kind of hopes that they're collecting enough in case of a very high insolvency event. So, for example, I think 3-4 weeks ago, there's a big DYDX drain of the insurance fund, right, Stoic?
Yes.
Yeah, and uh, I guess they got lucky this time around because they have a massive insurance fund.
Yeah.
Um, but this is kind of used to cover these extreme scenarios. So what we do is you can kind of think of it as having the exchange collecting the exact fees. It's calculating, okay, how much exactly do I need to cover the counterparty?
Mm-hmm.
And it uses this capital to cover them first. So LPs are actually protected. You can kind of think of it as using the insurance fund to protect LPs first. And then once the insurance fund gets drained, that's when LP capital starts getting eaten up.
Right.
Um, So yeah, to be honest, there's a lot of very cool mechanisms. I think it makes a lot of sense to trade on Vest as a trader because ultimately you're being exposed to the most fairest pricing. You get paid, or your pricing is determined based on the risk that you add. And if you add zero risk, you actually pay nothing. And as a liquidity provider, I think it makes very good sense because you're actually getting compensated for the risk that you're taking on.
Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, so we've covered So we've covered the mechanisms behind VEST. We've kind of provided a high level overview of how VEST works.
Yeah.
Um, what I want to get into is your vision and direction when it comes to VEST Labs. What can we expect from VEST Labs in the future? And what does a roadmap look like?
Yeah. So a few things. So one, the end vision really is to build a fully trustless and transparent financial ecosystem. So everything that you can think of on Wall Street, everything that you can think of that you can do in traditional finance, our goal is to replicate that and enable users to do the exact same thing with crypto and digital assets. Eventually, maybe even with traditional products as well. Um, and this is done in a fully trustless, fully autonomous way where everything is guaranteed by math and not by manual trust or operation. Whether it's trading options, whether it's trading loans or on a borrow lending protocol, traditional futures. The end vision is to ultimately build this ecosystem and enable everyone to do this. The thing that kind of people ask like, okay, how is this different than just yeah, like why can't Lyra Finance just make their own options protocol and Vest kind of makes their own perps protocol and Uniswap handle the traditional spot or swap market. The thing that makes Vest very interesting is because we're able to calculate risk, we're also able to integrate all of this into a coherent, unified ecosystem, such that if you have a borrow lending position, or if you want to open a loan, you can use your perps position as collateral for this loan. And the reason why this is possible is because we can calculate how much risk this perps position is necessarily adding to the entire ecosystem. So we can credit you uh, based on this risk. So that's like the first thing, and I think a lot of this is going to take a lot of work from all over the areas. We're gonna need a lot of talent everywhere. But one of the technologies that we really want to use is zero knowledge technology, not just because we think it's something that's novel and we're just using it for the sake of it, but um, we think to really push forward for a trustless and transparent future where privacy is also secured and guaranteed for users. That's something we're really going to have to leverage. So this is something that we're actually very excited to not only be working on. We're going to be working on more ZK DeFi primitives, but we're also working with a lot of very talented cryptographers in the crypto scene and the academia scene as well. So yeah, future's bright, man.
That's, I mean, anyone listening, and that's massive. I'd suggest you go back and listen to this section again, because the implications of this are huge. What you're saying, and
Yeah,
yeah, I'm really looking forward. I mean, we have to keep our mouth shut. I've been,
can't
I
say
can't
too
talk
much.
too much. People ask me all the time,
Yeah.
but I'm really excited, man. I'm really
Here's the
excited.
thing, man. This is what I think DeFi is supposed to be about. Like
Yeah, 100%.
we should be pushing for building towards these things. We shouldn't be making these meme coins. Well, yes, they get a lot of attention. They get retail users in, but I really think if we really want to make something game changing out of this, and we really want to change the lives of everyone, I think many people don't understand this, but um, the way how finance works in the traditional world, it interacts with everyone. It affects everyone essentially, um, whether it's a small tinker in interest rates or a small like the Argentinian financial crisis, for example, of 1998. Um, this displaced 50% of families, and I think 70% of children were homeless. So these things are very very important, and I think it's very sad, to be honest, to kind of crypto has like a bad rep for all these meme coins and apes. Um, but this is what I think could be the solution to all of these real world problems that are affecting billions of lives.
Yeah, 100%, man. I'm so excited, to be honest. Like, I mean, we could just see the repercussions from things like the Luna collapse to the
Yeah,
eventual domino effect.
man.
Everything's so connected,
So
that
I was in
some
Korea when
domino
that
is gonna fall in the future.
dude. I
Sorry,
was
go
in
ahead.
Korea when that happened, and everyone was holding Luna, and it's just like everyone in Korea, because Do Kwon
Yeah,
is like
yeah.
it's so sad,
Unfortunate,
so
man.
sad. Yeah,
But What I think we should let's pivot to something like a
Yeah,
positive.
let's be more positive.
Let's talk about something a
Yeah,
little bit more positive.
yeah,
So I think a lot of people are also going to be really interested in hearing about what goes into making a Perp-Dex because you've
yeah.
done this from the ground up, right? Or building a startup in crypto. Um, what goes behind into making a Perp-Dex or building a startup in crypto?
I actually, for some reason, I think during this time in the bear, there's you have a lot of people, dipping, pivoting to AI or doing some other stuff, and apparently there's some stigma of it being really hard to remain in the industry. I think, as cliche as it sounds, is if you really want to make it, you either have to be a full blown like money hungry person to just be in it for the money, or you have to be very passionate about the technology. Um, what goes into making a perp, I think it comes down to you need a very talented team. You need to work very hard. You need to I think you have to look at it from very first principles, and it's very easy to look at like a dex that has been made and try to add some addition onto that. Like I can't tell you how many GMX forks I've seen with just some small tinker and
Yeah.
like funding rates or the way how fees are distributed. I think if you really want to solve a problem, not just in crypto but anywhere, the best way is to just think about it from the ground up. Uh, that's not only you're not only more likely to probably solve a more substantial problem, but you tackle it in a much more creative way. So that's actually what I think Vest was built upon. Uh, like, yes, maybe the first prototype was a drift version of no repeg, but we actually, we completely scrapped that and we kind of took things from base principles. And I think we did something that no one else has ever done. So, to put it short, it takes a lot of passion and it takes a lot of, building it from ground principles, uh, which requires a lot of passion to really see it through.
Right. And speaking of passion, there's a lot of people who are passionate about DeFi and want to build. What advice do you have for those people?
Yeah. So I'm guessing like, people don't want to hear like the generic, uh, um, you know, just the generic advice, but really I can say is one of the most important advice I've ever received was be a good person and work with good people. And I know that sounds very generic and it's very cliche, but I can't tell you how many times this has helped. At the end of the day, whoever you're talking to, you got to envision them as they're also a human just like you. We're all trying to figure out this we're all trying to figure out this, this weird thing called life in one way or the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, they also have a family, they have parents, they have kids, they have brothers and sisters, and that's really it. Like at the end of the day, they're they're just like you. Um, but maybe some more technical advice. Uh, the importance of mentors, especially in crypto, you need to have multiple mentors. Ideally, one in each sector, because
Yeah.
there's so many just different playing fields in crypto. Like you have a go-to-market, you have the legal, you have the tech, you have the engineering, you have the whole research, mechanism design, and guess what? You're in this industry that introduces a lot of new things like tokenomics. Um, so yeah, like I guess in traditional companies, it was fine just having one mentor who kind of handled it all. But I think this is more especially relevant in crypto where you got to have multiple. You really do.
Yeah, so you're talking about the importance of mentorship, right? And so what
Yeah.
can someone do today? So like would you suggest people just slide through the DMs or like, how would you suggest someone to go about looking for a mentor?
Yeah.
Um
So yeah, that's a great question. So this is another piece of advice that I really highly recommend. In crypto, it's very easy to get distracted by all the noise, right? There's a new technology every other day. Maybe not a great new technology, but there's something new that you see on Twitter. Whether it's LSTs, whether it's stablecoins, whether it's a Perp-Dex mechanism,
mhm,
what you should do is you should get very technical and very knowledgeable about one specific niche. That's it. You know, and honestly, it's pretty, like, I don't want to say it's pretty easy to LARP in crypto. In my experience, I think there's a lot of people who pretend they know what they're talking about, but if you know exactly what you're talking about in one specific niche, people automatically assume that you're very knowledgeable in other niches. So, but that's beyond the point. My point is you want to get very technical into one specific niche so that you can provide a lot of value into this one specific niche. So I can give you an example. Um, a lot of investors actually come to Vest Labs to ask us to do due diligence on other Perp-Dexes. And this is because I guess we just kind of, this is our focus, and I guess I like to say we are the kings of the game. So we've actually advised them whether a Perp-Dex was sort of suspicious, had a chance of insolvency, or whether it was robust and a good mechanism. Many times we tell them, and we actually we run through the simulations. I think there was even one time where we presented the simulations to the team, or one of the teams, I can't say which, but we said, hey, if this specific scenario happens, you have a very high chance of insolvency, or not even just high chance, like you will go insolvent, and this protocol will blow up, and you'll lose a lot of money for your traders. And I think, obviously these guys were like, yeah, but some game theory things, like you'll have traders that come in and fund, like arb the funding rate, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. That's always that's always the go-to, right?
Yeah. And we're just like, okay, yeah, sure. Let's see about that. And yeah, I guess the investor ultimately, they never invested in, but 3 months later, the exchange blows up, and they're like, holy
Damn.
moly, you guys were right, and it blows up with the exact same scenarios that we presented. So I guess because we're so knowledgeable, word of mouth spreads very easily, and people, they kind of seek you for advice in a way. They ask you for your technical expertise, but you also learn a lot from them. So I think TLDR, just focus on one specific niche and be very good at it, and I think that'll help you. That'll help you not only make a lot of mentors, but it'll help you make a lot of connections.
Yeah, no, that's great actionable advice. And along the same lines, if anyone's listening in and they're like, hey, like, I'm interested in Vest and I want to know if Vest is hiring.
Yeah, we're hiring across all roles. If you're looking to join the team, feel free to shoot me an email. My email is perp2@team.vest. Wait, no, hang on. Sorry, perp2@vest.xyz. Just let me know. Send me a resume. We are going to be expanding the team very, very soon, and we are very high growth paced team.
Yeah, so if you're highly passionate about DeFi and you've spent some time developing technical expertise and you flourish in a high-paced environment, reach out to Justin. And actually, one thing I want to circle back to, which you mentioned, which I think is huge, and I hope anyone listening caught it, is who else to build a Perp-Dex than a team that's actually auditing other or investors that are approaching a team to look into other Perp-Dexes, right? Like, come on, man. Like,
Yeah, this goes back to the problem. It goes back to the problem.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So the one other thing I wanted to touch on, and you talked about, you were trading and funding rate arb and all this stuff. So
Yeah.
is there any advice that you can share with anyone listening in, or any alpha that you can drop? Even though I hate that word, but yeah, you could drop any alpha.
Well, I'll be a lot more active on Twitter, and I'll be sharing a lot more of these strategies. We don't. Well, I think I can share some very basic advice. It'll probably be too much to share them in this call. One of the alphas I will say though is perhaps on Vest. If you're a liquidity provider, you should really, and you're LPing into Perp-Dex, you should really look into Vest. This goes back to, as an LP, you're being paid risk-adjusted returns, and you're actually being compensated correctly based on what kind of capital you're putting in. I can share some simulations as well, but as an LP, I think there's even one simulation where You had a gas pump in October, I want to say mid to late October, that and it kind of 3x'd. But as LP Invest, you had very minimal loss exposure, whereas other fixed fee Perp-Dexes, these guys lost tons and tons of money. I would say like a 50% drop. So I guess the biggest alpha here I can share is just to trade on Vest and LP on Vest.
Yeah, and actually, the other alpha I'd give is to follow Justin at Perp-V2 on Twitter. He's had his head down, him and the team. They've been building. I've been there seeing it all behind the scenes for about a year now. I know how much hard work is being put in behind the scenes, but Justin's going to be more active on Twitter. So definitely follow him on Twitter. And yes, follow Vest, look into Vest, and trade on Vest. So now I wanna kind of switch gears a little bit and get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah.
How do you reset or manage stress? And what are some hobbies you partake in, especially juggling? I mean, I know your schedule, right? It's insane, right? And juggling that, being the CEO of an exchange versus normal life. How do you go about managing that?
Maybe this is a little bit sad, but I think a lot of my life actually is on Vest, and
Yeah.
or it's sad to other people, but not sad to me.
Yeah.
But I think it's also very important to have other hobbies. So I think to people that know me, I actually have abnormally so many hobbies, whether it's drums, whether it's piano, whether it's guitar, violin, rock climbing, biking, skateboarding. I have so many, and maybe it's because of my nature to just try to learn things and be very good at things and be very, I guess, risk adverse into this process. But at the end of the day, you can have all these hobbies, but it really comes down to nailing down the basics. Eat 3 meals a day, drink plenty of water, get some workout in. And to be honest, I think if you and also, sleep plenty, at least 8. If you get those 4 down, you're set. I think it's very hard, in my opinion, to burn out. Typically, you burn out whenever one of those collapses, and so you stop eating well, and then you stop. You kind of prioritize work over eating. Stop eating, then you don't have enough energy to go to the gym, then you start feeling terrible, and it kind of just bridges all over into many problems. I think that's one of the main causes of burnout, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a vicious cycle. I think sleep is definitely the most important thing. I mean, but
Yeah,
obviously, if you're building, if you're building a dex or if you're chasing something where
I don't sleep.
I think,
Oh man,
there's always a period of time where you need to be obsessed with what it is you're doing. Like
yeah,
you need to have that obsession. And during that time, there might be days that you might not be sleeping enough. But then I think
yeah,
if you revert back to that, that medium where you try to catch up on your sleep, make sure sleep is a priority. Obviously, your nutritional intake and getting some sort of physical activity. I think that's huge.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Stoic, I feel like you listen a lot to Andrew Huberman. I guess shout out to him.
Yeah, shout out to
I
Andrew Huberman for sure.
highly recommend everyone here to listen
Yeah.
to him. Hey, a lot of the things we talk about actually, Stoic.
Yeah, all our
Cold
questions are
showers
around
too.
that. Yeah.
Oh wait, that's something we gotta talk about. Cold showers.
Cold
This
showers, yeah. It's alpha, man. That's alpha, I think.
this
For me, for sure it is. And I put you, remember, I forced you to start taking those cold showers.
so
Are you
so
still
to the
taking those?
audience, yeah, to the audience, Stoic. I guess a few months ago. This was probably back in April, May, or something. Actually, not even a few months ago. It was a while ago. Stoic has been telling me to just do cold showers. And I was like, why? He's just like, do it, man. And I was like, okay. It turns out it's actually a hack to so many things. There's a study that's cited by Andrew Huberman where actually a lot of your awareness as a human your circadian rhythm is actually temperature dependent. So it's actually based a lot on your body temperature. So when you take a cold shower in the morning, first thing you get out, take a cold shower, your body starts to heat up naturally. And this essentially tricks your body into thinking, okay, I got to get up. I got to spend more energy, put more energy into this body. And it gets you ready for the day. And then, end of the day, you take a hot shower, cools your body down internally, and helps you sleep much better. So,
Yeah,
I guess
100%.
that's
He's
just,
shilling the cold showers for me. That's awesome.
I still do
But
it.
If you're really crazy, you take a cold shower before before you get in
Yeah.
bed.
What do you do? What do you do, man? You take a cold shower before you
You,
go to
you got to
bed?
switch it up a little bit, man. So you got to take, because of the circadian rhythm, your core temperature starts dropping over the second half of the day. So that's when it gets a little bit more difficult in terms of willpower too, right? So if you want to really kick it up
Yeah.
a notch, every now I wouldn't recommend doing this all the time, but if you've already leveled up on the cold showers, then definitely try take switch it up. Try taking a cold shower in the second half of the day and see how that works.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, we're coming up on the end of this conversation. What I want, one last thing I wanted to ask you, right? Do you have any like crazy stories or interesting stories that you want to share to anyone that's listening in? Since you've gotten into crypto, I mean, we all have crazy stories or interesting stories, but if there's anything you'd like to share.
There's a lot. Anything? There's a ton, man. I guess I can share one funny story. Uh, I guess like this goes back to the first problem where even within venture capitalists, one big VC invests in one company and then all the other VCs are like kind of just following in. There's one time where um, me and the team were at this, I guess, event and party, and we got into this debate on perp mechanisms and VAMMs actually. Um, I don't think this is a very big. I can't say which because it's honestly this guy. If it would hurt his
Oh damn!
reputation.
Tell me offline. Tell me offline.
It would hurt his reputation. But it was just so funny because I don't think he invested in the protocol, but he was so um, he was just he was so calm. It was funny because he was so confident in what he was saying, but it was just complete nonsense. I think he was like, "Oh, this can never go insolvent. It's going to work 100%, etc." And it's funny because these are what supposedly um, one of the best investors in the space. And
Interesting.
if anything, it just shows that there's a lot of LARPers in the space, and just be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and you always want to be aware of people that use that kind of language. Never, always, 100% probability.
yeah,
That's always a slippery slope.
in crypto, I don't know if that word exists actually, man. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Very true.
Yeah.
But I just want to wrap up this conversation. Thank you, Justin, for taking the time to hop on the podcast. Just a personal anecdote. I've known Justin for almost a year now. It's been a pleasure working alongside you and the team. I've been intimately involved behind the scenes, and I'm really excited for what's to come. Is there anything you'd like to let the listeners know before we wrap it up?
Yeah. If you're a very big trader or a very big liquidity provider, you should really reach out to Vest, and we'd like to invite you to reach out and just try it. Just because, well, maybe a bit of alpha. Um, Early LPs are actually rewarded more in the LP pool. So the earlier you are, technically the better. Um, I just like to, I want you to keep an eye out on Invest. But at the end of the day, whether you decide to trade on Invest or not, that's up to you. The one thing I want people to take away from this conversation is to just look at the Perp-Dexes that you're trading on and ask yourself, okay, why am I trading on this? And if one of the reasons is because other people are trading on it, fair, liquidity is a big problem in DeFi. But if there's another Perp-Dex that has the same liquidity or works just as well, and the reason why another Perp-Dex you're trading on, or you're trading on this Perp-Dex, is simply because people shilling on it. There's some token mechanism about it, and they're not really doing anything special. I would just highly encourage you to be very cognizant of the risks that you're taking. You don't have to look 100% into the mechanism of what the protocol does, but I guess at a high level, and just know like, okay, there's a chance of this protocol going insolvent, and I want you guys to at least factor that in, this risk and chance of insolvency, into your decision on what other protocols you're trading on. Um, so I don't. I know a lot of people that are very big perps traders, and they've lost a lot of money trading on many exchanges. And perhaps it's a volatility nature of crypto, and us as people in this industry, we have high, we're pretty risk adverse. But I don't want anyone to lose money and lose their money because of some bad protocol mechanism design. That's the one thing I want people to take away from. So other than that, Stoic, it was a pleasure. This is really fun. We should do this more often.
Yeah, we'll definitely get you. We'll have you as a repeat guest for sure. But thank you for coming on and sharing your ideology and philosophy and the vision as it pertains to the DEX. I'm looking forward to showing people who the new sheriff in town is going to be, honestly, when it comes to Perp-Dexes. And with that, thank you everyone for tuning in for this special edition of Perpetual Perspectives. Stay tuned for the heat we're about to drop in the next coming weeks. We're out.
We're out.